The fridge door creaked as Peter pulled it open, and in the dim light of his kitchen, he froze. His hand, still gripping the cold handle, trembled. At the bottom shelf of the fridge, nestled between forgotten leftovers and a half-empty carton of milk, lay a small, frail figure. The creature, its skin a dark shade of gray, seemed impossibly thin, its small chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Its eyes, huge, glowing, and filled with an unnatural intelligence, stared up at him. Peter blinked twice, trying to shake the disbelief, but the alien child remained in place, gazing back at him with an eerie calm. He should have screamed, should have slammed the door shut and run, but his body refused to move. It was like he was frozen in time, unable to process what he was seeing. The child's skin shimmered, like it was made of liquid silver, and its tiny hands were curled tightly into fists. She was no taller than a doll. Yet something about her presence was overwhelming, like the weight of the universe had just settled in his kitchen. The room felt colder now, despite the warmth of the summer night outside. Peter's breath hitched, his mind scrambling for an explanation. Was this a dream? A hallucination? No, it couldn't be. He was wide awake, standing in his kitchen, staring at something that was impossible. As he reached out slowly, his heart pounding in his chest, he noticed something else. A small, folded note was tucked beneath the alien's body. Hesitant, Peter reached for it, his fingers trembling. He unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was strange, alien, yet somehow legible. It was written in both a script he didn't recognize and in simple English. Please raise her as yours. Peter's pulse raced. He had no idea what he was supposed to do, or how the child had ended up in his fridge. The note didn't answer his questions. It only raised more. Where had she come from? Was she alone? He reached down toward the child. His fingers brushed her skin, and it was cold to the touch, unnaturally cold. Her large eyes blinked once, and then, before he could process it, she whispered, her voice raspy and faint, "I'm hungry." Peter's heart stopped. The words echoed in his head, a chill spreading through his veins. He staggered back, bumping into the counter behind him. His mind couldn't comprehend the situation. A tiny alien, lying in his fridge, speaking to him. Chatan. Child's eyes followed his every move, her gaze unwavering, calm, and full of an intelligence far beyond anything he had ever seen. She wasn't a pet or a toy. She was real, and she was in danger. What did he do now? Should he call someone? Authorities? What if they didn't believe him? What if they took her away, assuming she was some kind of experiment gone wrong? Could he help her? Could he even trust her? As the seconds passed, Peter found himself unable to tear his eyes away from her. The child shivered again, and that was when Peter realized something. There was no warmth left in her. She was dying. His instincts kicked in. Without thinking, he gently scooped her up into his arms, careful not to hurt her fragile frame. Her body was light, almost weightless, and as he cradled her against his chest, he felt a strange surge of protectiveness wash over him. The chill that had filled the room seemed to seep into his bones as he looked around the kitchen for something, anything that could help. He couldn't let her die here, alone, in his arms. But what was he supposed to do? He was no doctor. He was just a man, trying to make sense of an impossible situation. The child stirred slightly, her glowing eyes meeting his once more. Her lips parted, but instead of speaking again, she looked down at the cold, hard surface of the counter, her expression unreadable. Peter's mind raced. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him, suffocating him with its intensity. "Where did you come from?" he whispered to her, his voice barely a murmur. But the child said nothing. Her eyes flickered briefly, as if she understood the question, but no answer came. A deep sadness seemed to fill the room, the silence pressing in on him, thick and heavy. Peter didn't know what to do. But he did know one thing. He couldn't just let her die. Whatever this was, whatever he was now caught up in, he had to find a way to help her. The sudden realization hit him like a wave. He was no longer just an ordinary man in his ordinary kitchen. He had been thrust into a reality that was far bigger than anything he could have imagined. The fate of this alien child, and possibly something much larger, now rested in his hands. Peter took a deep breath, steadying himself. This was no longer a question of what he could do. It was a question of survival. Peter's mind raced as he sat in his kitchen, the alien child nestled in his arms. The world outside seemed to grow smaller with every passing second. His senses were heightened, his every movement feeling strangely deliberate, as if the universe had shifted, and now he was at the center of something greater than himself. He looked down at the child again, her silver skin glinting in the soft light of the kitchen. Her fragile form trembled, and he could feel the coldness radiating off her. She was so small, so defenseless. But there was something else too, a sense of power in her eyes, a weight in her gaze that made Peter feel both terrified and protective. This child was from another world, but it was clear that whatever or whoever had left her here, they had intended for Peter to find her. The note had been clear: raise her as yours. But Peter had no idea how, no idea what she needed. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't equipped to save an alien life. But as her eyes met his once more, he realized something. She was looking to him for answers. She was trusting him. Peter stood up, cradling the child carefully. The fridge door was still open, and the cold air was beginning to seep out. But it didn't matter. The chill in the room had nothing to do with the temperature. He moved toward the living room, unsure of what to do next. He placed her gently on the couch, covering her with a blanket he grabbed from the chair nearby. She didn't protest. She didn't move much at all, her large eyes blinking slowly, as if exhausted. He could feel the weight of her gaze on him as he paced in a circle around the room, his thoughts chaotic. What was happening? Was she sick? Was there a way to communicate with her? Peter had never been prepared for anything like this, let alone a situation that would challenge the very nature of reality. Peter needed answers, and fast. He grabbed his phone from the table and began typing. But what could he search? Alien child found in fridge? The very idea seemed ridiculous even. To him, he quickly discarded the thought. Instead, he called the one person who might have the faintest clue, his older brother Marcus, who was a scientist working at a university. The phone rang several times before Marcus picked up. Peter, what's going on? Marcus's voice was thick with sleep. Marcus, I need your help. I don't know how to explain this, but I found something, someone, an alien. Peter's voice was shaking. There was a long pause on the other end. What? Marcus asked, his tone now fully alert. What are you talking about? I found her in my fridge, Peter said, the words coming out in a rush. I don't know where she came from, but she's an alien, Marcus. She's real, she's tiny, and she's cold, and she's starving. Another silence filled the line. Then Marcus spoke, his voice measured. Okay. Don't panic. Tell me exactly what's happening. Where are you right now? I have her on the couch. She's not moving much. I don't know what to do. She's cold, Marcus. She needs help. Peter replied, his voice strained. Stay calm. I'll be there in an hour. Keep her warm. Don't do anything drastic. Don't let anyone else know about this, okay? Just stay where you are. I'll handle it from there. Marcus's voice was firm, commanding even. I'm going to need you to keep her safe until then. Peter nodded, though Marcus couldn't see him. He hung up the phone and walked back to the couch, kneeling beside the child. She hadn't moved, but her eyes followed him, as if she understood everything he was saying. Her tiny chest rose and fell with each shallow breath. It was clear now. She was weaker than before. Peter couldn't wait for an hour. Every second felt like an eternity. "Do you trust me?" he whispered, unsure of why he was speaking to her. As if she could understand. She blinked slowly, and in that moment Peter's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know if she understood him, but it felt like she did. Her eyes seemed to communicate something, a silent plea for help. His hands shook as he gently lifted her up again, holding her against his chest. He could feel her coldness pressing into him. The feeling of helplessness began to take over as he tried to think of what to do next. The fridge. He'd seen something in there that could be used, but nothing seemed right. He needed to warm her up, but how? Then, it hit him. There was a small space heater in the corner of the room. He had never used it before, but now it seemed like his only option. Peter moved toward it quickly, still holding the child. He placed her gently on the couch again and turned the heater on, adjusting the settings to a low but steady warmth. He watched her for a long moment, hoping for any sign of improvement. Her body still trembled, but there was something else too. A faint glow, barely visible, started to emanate from her skin, a soft, otherworldly light that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of her breathing. Peter leaned in closer. Was she healing? Was this some kind of alien biology at work, or was this just a sign that she was getting worse? The minutes stretched on. Peter couldn't leave her alone. He couldn't afford to be wrong. What would you do if this happened to you? Tell me below. Peter sat beside the alien child for what felt like hours, his eyes never leaving her. The soft glow from her skin flickered in the dim light of the room, casting strange shadows on the walls. Her breathing was still shallow, but there was a subtle change. Her chest rose slightly higher, her body less rigid with the cold. The warmth from the heater was slowly making a difference, but Peter couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He had never been in a situation like this. He had no idea what to do, how to fix it. He could only watch and wait, helpless in the face of the unknown. His phone buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from Marcus. "On my way. Don't touch anything else. Wait for me." Peter's heart skipped a beat. He had been hoping for answers, but now he wasn't sure what to expect. What could Marcus possibly know that he didn't? Was this some kind of government experiment? An alien invasion? His mind raced as he glanced down at the child. She hadn't moved much in the last few minutes, but Peter noticed something else. Her eyes were now fully open, staring up at him, unblinking. There was a quiet intensity to her gaze, as if she were studying him, calculating. Her tiny hand twitched, curling and uncurling in the blanket. Peter leaned closer, cautiously reaching out toward her. "Are you okay?" he whispered. His voice cracked slightly, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. To his surprise, the child shifted, her eyes focusing on his hand. Then, almost imperceptibly, she opened her mouth. A sound, a soft croak, escaped her lips. It wasn't a word, not exactly. It was more like a vibration, a low hum that seemed to reverberate through the air. Peter's pulse quickened. Was this a language? A signal? Something he couldn't understand? Or maybe it was a sign that she was still alive, still trying to communicate. "Please, tell me what you need," he begged, his voice tight with desperation. The child's eyes flickered, briefly, her gaze locking with his. Then she looked away, staring at something Peter couldn't see. Her tiny fingers twitched again, this time brushing against the blanket. Peter followed her gaze, trying to make sense of what was happening. But as he turned his attention back to her, he saw something he hadn't noticed before. A faint marking on her forehead, glowing softly like a brand or insignia of some kind. It was a symbol, a strange geometric shape that seemed to pulse with a rhythmic, almost hypnotic glow. Peter blinked, rubbing his eyes, unsure if he was seeing things. The glow intensified, and he could hear a faint hum in the air, as if the mark was emitting some sort of energy. A shiver ran down his spine. Was this child connected to something larger, something he couldn't even begin to understand? Without thinking, he pulled out his phone again, snapping a quick picture of the mark. Maybe Marcus would know something about it. He didn't dare touch it. He had no idea what it could mean or what it could do. The child, however, didn't seem to mind. Her body was beginning to warm up more rapidly now, the eerie coldness that had overtaken her slowly fading. But as she shifted slightly, Peter noticed something. Her pupils had begun to glow, matching the faint light of the mark on her forehead. She was awakening. She was starting to recover. But from what? Where had she come from? Peter didn't have time to consider those questions before the child's small, raspy voice echoed through the room again. "Help me." It was barely a whisper, but it was enough. The terror that had held Peter in place was now replaced with an overwhelming sense of urgency. He needed to know what was happening. He had to find answers. He looked down at her, his breath caught in his throat. "I'm here. I'll help you." And as he spoke those words, something changed in the room. A low rumble, like distant thunder, vibrated through the walls. The child's eyes widened in alarm. Her small hands gripped the blanket tightly, and she looked at Peter, her expression filled with what could only be described as fear. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath them. Peter jumped to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what was happening, but whatever it wasn't good. Suddenly the lights in the room flickered, casting eerie shadows across the walls. And then, a voice, deep, mechanical, and cold, spoke from nowhere. "Return her." Peter's blood ran cold. The voice was unnatural, artificial, like it had been transmitted through a speaker. It wasn't from the child. It wasn't from anywhere in the room. It came from outside. The child's eyes widened with recognition, and she whimpered, her small body trembling in fear. Peter's mind was racing. Who was that? What was happening? The voice had spoken to him, and it had only one command. "Return her." "What do you mean?" Peter shouted, his voice filled with panic. "Who are you? What do you want?" The voice didn't respond. Instead, the vibrations in the room intensified. The air felt thicker, heavier, like the very space around them was becoming charged with some unknown energy. Peter's gaze flicked to the child, who was now sitting up, her hands clutching the blanket. Her once calm expression had turned to one of terror. "Return her, or suffer the consequences." Peter's hands shook as he reached for his phone again, trying to take another picture of the child's glowing mark, trying to find something that could explain this madness. But the camera wouldn't focus. The screen flickered, then went black. The air was now thick with tension, and the child's soft whimpers filled the space around them. What was going on? Would you do as they say? Would you hand her over to whoever was on the other side of that voice? What would you do if this happened to you? Tell me below. Peter's heart raced as the air thickened with an almost tangible pressure. His phone was useless now, the screen black and unresponsive. The deep, mechanical voice echoed again, but this time, Peter's mind was in overdrive. His thoughts collided. He had no idea what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't give her up. The child, now fully awake, clutched her knees to her chest, her tiny body trembling with fear. The strange, glowing mark on her forehead pulsed rhythmically, casting a soft light around the room. The voice, commanding and cold, continued to reverberate, but Peter couldn't focus on it anymore. His attention was entirely on her. The feeling of protectiveness he had for this small alien creature grew stronger, almost primal. "They'll take you," Peter whispered, more to himself than to her. "I won't let them." The walls seemed to close in around him, the vibrating hum filling his ears, making everything feel distorted. The space heater, which had been doing its best to keep her warm, suddenly flickered and shut off. The room grew even colder. A sense of urgency settled over Peter like a thick fog. He couldn't sit here and wait to be told what to do. He couldn't just let this happen. There had to be another way. There always was another way. He rushed to the window, pulling the curtains aside. Outside, the night was still and silent. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, yet he felt as though something was watching, as though the very fabric of reality had shifted in a way he couldn't comprehend. Turning back, he glanced at the child, one last time. Her glowing eyes were locked on him, pleading, but there was something else in her gaze, a silent trust, as if she understood that Peter was her only hope. Her tiny hands reached out toward him. Her fingers twitched as if to say, "Help me," and in that instant he realized this wasn't just a child. This was a message, a test. But who was testing him? Who had sent her here? And why? "Peter!" Marcus's voice broke through the tension. He'd arrived. Peter turned sharply, his breath still heavy with panic, and found his brother standing in the doorway, eyes wide with shock as he took in the scene. The glowing child, the strange energy in the room, it was clear that Marcus wasn't prepared for this. "What the hell is going on?" Marcus asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Peter took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I don't know. I don't understand it, but I can't give her up." Marcus stepped forward cautiously, eyes scanning the alien child. He didn't speak for a moment, but Peter could see the fear and curiosity swirling in his brother's gaze. "There's something you need to understand," Marcus said quietly, his tone now serious. "That mark on her forehead, it's not just a symbol, it's a beacon." Peter's stomach dropped. "A beacon?" Marcus nodded, his gaze flicking toward the window, where the air seemed to shimmer with an unseen force. "It's a signal. Whoever left her here is watching. They've been tracking her, and now they're coming for her." Peter's mind reeled. "But who are they? What do they want?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't know. But what I do know is that they won't stop until they get her back. And right now, that child is the most important thing on this planet." The voice from outside spoke again, its mechanical timbre cutting through the silence like a blade. "Return her. There is no escape." Peter's hands clenched into fists at his sides. This wasn't just about an alien child. It was about something much larger. Something that had been hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to emerge. "We can't let them take her," Peter said, his voice firm now, filled with resolve. "We won't." Marcus didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached into his bag, pulling out something small, a sleek, metallic device. Peter recognized it instantly. It was an alien artifact, something Marcus had been working on for years. But Peter hadn't known its true purpose. It had been hidden, locked away, part of a secret project. "This will stop them," Marcus said quietly, his face pale. "But it's risky. It's untested. If we use it, it could either shield us or destroy us." Peter didn't hesitate. He didn't care about the risk anymore. He cared about the child. He cared about saving her from whatever was coming. "Do it," he said, stepping back toward the child. Marcus took a deep breath, then activated the device. A low hum filled the air, and the child's eyes widened in shock. Her small form shivered as the glow from her forehead intensified, now pulsating with an almost blinding light. Suddenly, the temperature in the room spiked, the air crackling with energy. The walls seemed to bend, the space warping around them. Peter felt an overwhelming pressure as if the very atmosphere had become charged with unseen forces. And then, nothing. The room fell silent. The vibrations ceased. The oppressive hum in the air was gone. Peter looked around, his heart in his throat. The child lay motionless on the couch, her small body glowing faintly. The mark on her forehead had dimmed, but the energy that had filled the room was still palpable, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Peter turned to Marcus. "Did it work?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the child, his expression filled with awe and fear. I think so," he said quietly. "But we can't stay here. Not now." Peter nodded. The silence felt wrong, as if everything had been set in motion. They were no longer just witnesses to an alien encounter. They were participants in something much larger, something that had only just begun. "Where do we go?" Peter asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty. Marcus looked back at him, his eyes dark with understanding. "We leave. We take her with us, and we don't stop running until we have answers." As they moved to leave the apartment, Peter glanced one last time at the alien child. She was still, her eyes closed as if in sleep, but the faint glow around her told him that she was not far from awakening. They couldn't outrun what was coming, but they could prepare. The world had changed, and Peter had no idea what was about to unfold, but he knew this. The adventure had only just begun.